My research is about a lot of things. I think I started as a fine artist, and the creative part of me has always been engaged in that, and that's been a constant theme, and that's attracted me to different subjects and communities along the way. So my fine art background led me to deal with technology, and I started doing a lot of computer art, and that sort of guided me through various decisions. And technology remains a strand of my research, and as I've become more involved with fashion and textiles, it became a very strong strand. With my colleague Jasbir, I proposed we write a book which actually started to provide this sort of foundational knowledge and bring together a kind of an epistemological basis, you would call it, to textiles as a subject, which was followed by another one which was about fashion and textiles as a subject. I think another aspect of my research has been to do with the experience being a lecturer and interacting with students, particularly postgraduate students. And I found for certainly a decade or more of my life, I had a very strong involvement with Southeast Asia and China. And I had a lot of research students involved in the areas of cultural heritage and identity, and I suppose dealing with the impact of modernity on their societies and sort of retrieving their cultural heritage and finding a new place for it. The opportunity to exercise your curiosity and your imagination. It allows you to travel in your chair across all kinds of dimensions and spaces. And it allows you to look back into the past and into the future. So there's a kind of escapism. Your ability to help other people on their journeys is immensely important and very rewarding. And I think the generosity you can show to others and the generosity they show to you in return is one of the great satisfactions of being involved in a research community. The last part of it, in terms of my own particular research career, has been the opportunity to see the world, to see how different academics, different students, different cultures dealt with their own knowledge and culture. And so that's, personally, that's been hugely enriching. If somebody says to you, we can't find anybody to give a talk in Wuhan, it's like 7 days' time, could you do it? And you have a choice. You can say, oh, I'm just too busy. I don't want to be bothered to do that. And it could be excruciating, and I've never been there. Or you can say yes. And I think when you say yes, you start yourself on a journey. And that actually takes you to really interesting places. So a kind of positivity about it is key and essential. And you get rewards. I won't say it's always easy, but you get better and better at doing that kind of stuff. And your life becomes far richer than you could ever have imagined it being. So I think research as a dimension of an academic's life can have a profound impact on their enjoyment of their entire career and also their kind of enjoyment of culture broadly. I've always been somebody who's adopted an approach of just being open to inquiries, open to invitations to participate. Networking becomes increasingly important as your research career develops, who you know, and I think also an immense willingness to be able to spin on a penny, which is, I've often been asked, could you do a conference at point blank range? And I always say yes. Your ability to be able to communicate readily, easily, frequently, to summarize, to encapsulate, becomes a kind of key skill. Well, in the old days, it was kind of like you get on a plane and you rock up and you start talking. And I think that's still there. That's still very valuable. Actually, one way you share who you are and what you think is by creating relationships with individuals and groups of individuals And so there's a kind of dissemination which happens through a kind of socialization. There are kind of formal methodologies, if you like, within research in the way information and knowledge and opinion is shared, which is the conference, the book, the journal, the magazine, all those kinds of things. And I've developed a technique of talking which just relies on a lot of pictures and me responding to a narrative which I've constructed, which allows me some flexibility and adaptability in varying messages according to audiences. More recently, because of, I suppose, the way we all become addicted to social media and other kind of internet opportunities, I've started to use those technologies, both for my creative work and for my written work. I'm not quite sure the extent to which the way in which researchers do that is just a kind of vanity publishing alternative, but it seems comforting, the idea that in some way things are manifested, that they are in a public sphere. One of the things I found most incomprehensible, which I think a lot of researchers and also practitioners find difficult at the beginning of their careers, is why on earth would you share your work? Why would you show your creative work? Or why would you talk about a topic that you have a particular view on? And I think you don't really know that until you've started doing it. And once you've started down that path of being a publicist, almost being a self-publicist on occasion, and finding opportunities to talk, to write, to interact, then you start to realise that there's a value in that, there's a social and cultural value, plus there's an enjoyment in life.